Okay, so in our last video we had basically asked three questions. One is, why can't a cheresh shota v'katan, why can't they light? Why is their lighting not accomplish anything? Then we wanted to know why it is that a Gentile can't light for somebody else. Okay, and then we wanted to know why you would think that they could, as they have to be listed. So why would you think that they could? Okay, so in order to answer these questions, and it really pays for you to take notes on this. In order to answer these questions, we have to explain something that I really wish I was there to explain to you. Like it really pains me. Like as I'm about to explain this, that I'm not there. But here's a principle to understand. We think a lot of times when we're told to do something that the result is what's important. So if I'm told to blow a shofar, so the shofar sound is what's important. And if I'm told to recite Kiddush, it's the Kiddush being recited that's important. It's the sounds, it's the declaration that's important. And if I'm told to light a candle, then it's the lit candle that's important. That's not true. That's not true. The obligation, a chiyuv mitzvah, the obligation to fulfill a mitzvah, although is framed in the context of producing a result, is not about producing a result. Rather, it's about, and this is going to seem slightly circular, but it's not, it's about the gavra, the person fulfilling the obligation. The main priority, obviously, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of blowing a shofar, what you need is a shofar blast. True. To recite Kiddush, you need to have said the words. And in order to light the candles, you're going to have to have lit candles. That's 100% true. But the priority is not the result. Okay? That's key to understand. I want you to, if you have to pause the video and repeat it, look around and see if everybody understands really what we just said. We're so used to thinking, okay, what do I have to do? I have to light a candle. Make sure the candle's lit. Right? But that's not true. And where do we see that? Right? We see that because it's not hanacha osa mitzvah. Right? It's not that, right, if we have the lit candle that's lit for 24 hours, so I still have to blow it out and relight it, because the idea is that we light the menorah. The idea is not that we have a lit candle. It's that I'm lighting the menorah. Generally, I might think that the idea is to have a lit menorah, but it's not. It's to light the menorah. The idea is the person has to fulfill the obligation, not that the obligation has to be fulfilled. That's very, very important. Okay? Now, who can fulfill this obligation? Once I understand that it's not about the result, but it's about the person fulfilling it, so now I understand that the only person that can fulfill it has to be somebody, and here's the key word, somebody that's associated with the mitzvah. A person that's going to fulfill the mitzvah, that's going to produce this result, has to be somebody that's associated with the mitzvah. Okay, that's a chiddush. We're throwing through a novel idea. There's a novel principle being thrown in here. Until this point, I would think that in order to fulfill a mitzvah, I merely need to produce the result, and anyone can produce the result as long as the result is produced. But really, it's about producing the result. And the only person that's qualified to produce the result is somebody that's associated with producing that result. Okay, and how do you gain association to the mitzvah? How do you gain association to the chiyuv, to the obligation? So that's somebody that has to be chayiv in the obligation. It's somebody that has to be obligated. Somebody that is obligated now has a relationship. They're associated with the mitzvah. That person can fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, so if somebody is not obligated in the mitzvah, they have no association with the mitzvah. So if right now I'm commanded to light a Chanukah menorah, so if I would think that it's all about producing a lit candle, so then anyone can light the candle. Who cares? But now that I know that the person has to be obligated to light the candle, right? So the person really has to have a relationship with the mitzvah. They have to be associated somehow with the mitzvah, and the only way you can have an association with the mitzvah is if you're obligated. Now, how do you gain the qualification to be obligated in the mitzvah? So here's the thing. So the person needs a couple of things. One of the main qualifications that a person needs to be obligated in the mitzvah is das. They have to have a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of mental acumen to be able to be obligated in the mitzvah. A cheresh and a shota, somebody that's deaf and somebody that's mute, and a minor, we don't consider, as we saw in the halacha, we don't consider them of sufficient das to be obligated in the mitzvah. And since they don't have sufficient das to be obligated in the mitzvah, they're not associated with the mitzvah. And that's why a cheresh, shota, and katan, right? That's why they're not obligated in the mitzvah, and that's why they can't, when they light a candle, right? So all three of those people, a kid, a deaf person, and a dumb person, they can all light a menorah, right? They can all produce a flame. But we say that they haven't accomplished anything. Even though they've accomplished lighting the menorah, why haven't they accomplished anything? Because they were never obligated and they had no association with the mitzvah. In order for a Chanukah candle to be a Chanukah candle and to be able to be mefarsin the nes, to publicize the miracle, what does it have to have? It has to have been lit by somebody that's associated with the mitzvah in the first place, since the entire obligation is to have somebody light the candle. But that somebody has to be associated with the mitzvah. And in order to be associated with the mitzvah, they have to be obligated in the mitzvah. And how does one gain obligation in the mitzvah? Well, one of the first things is they have to have is das. That's the first thing. But there's another aspect to it. There's another qualification that you have to have, and that is you have to be a ben bris. You have to be somebody that's included in the covenant of the mitzvahs in the first place. A Gentile who we love and a Gentile who we have great relationships with, they're not part of the covenant between God and the Jewish people, because they're not Jewish. So since they're excluded from that covenant, they're not obligated in the mitzvah. Since they're not obligated in the mitzvah, so therefore what? Therefore we say they don't associate with the mitzvah, and since they're not associated with the mitzvah because they're not part of the covenant, therefore they have no obligation to do the mitzvah. What we're saying here is that you have a key to, here's the mitzvah, fulfillment of the mitzvah, but in order to get to the fulfillment of the mitzvah, you have to be associated with the mitzvah. In order to be associated with the mitzvah, you have to be obligated in the mitzvah. In order to be obligated in the mitzvah, you need to have das, or be part of the bris, and be considered a ben bris. Now, why might I have thought that a person who's deaf or dumb, right, why might I have thought that they have accomplished something? What's the idea that I might have thought they might have actually been accomplishing something? So here's what we say is that I might have thought that hanacha osa mitzvah. I might have thought that placing the menorah, producing a result, is the obligation. Since I might have thought that producing the result is the obligation, therefore I might think that that anybody can do it. Right? Cheresh, shota, katan, guy, anybody can do it, because the whole point is to produce the result. But now that I know that the point is not to produce the result, but rather to do the action of lighting, that's the mitzvah, hadlaka osa mitzvah. Now I know a person has to associate themselves with the mitzvah. They have to be obligated in the mitzvah. In order to be obligated, they have to have das, or they have to be part of the bris. Anyone that doesn't is excluded from that. Okay, so that's the idea. So what I'd like you to do is text me now the answers to what the idea is of associating with the mitzvah. What does that mean that you associate with the mitzvah? What is and included in that is, what does it mean? What role does das and being a ben bris play in associating with the mitzvah? Why is it that a deaf, dumb, and minor who lights hasn't done anything? And I'd like to add in a fourth thing is, why might I have thought that they were qualified to light? So again, explain to me what associating with a mitzvah means, what role das and ben bris plays in associating with the mitzvah, explain why a deaf, dumb, and a minor who lights hasn't accomplished anything, and explain why I might have thought that a deaf, dumb, and a minor and a guy who light have accomplished something. Okay? I miss you guys like crazy. Happy Chanukah, guys. And can't wait to read your svaras and your answers. All the best.